The Simpsons has been on air so long that other shows have started remaking its jokes, sometimes a whole scene, sometimes an entire episode, and one show got so blatant it basically admitted it on screen. So today I'm showing you the Simpsons scenes other shows copied, and the ones doing the copying are not who you'd expect. Let's start with one of Bart's most famous bits, because it ended up somewhere you'd never think to look for it. You know the prank calls. Bart picks up the phone at the Simpsons house, rings Moe's Tavern, and asks for a customer by name, except the name's always fake, and it's always a trap. IP freely. Amanda hug and kiss. Seymour butts. Moe being Moe. Bellows the name out across the entire bar looking for the guy. And then the whole room goes quiet as it slowly dawns on him what he's just shouted in front of every regular he's got. Meanwhile, Bart and Lisa are on the other end of the line completely losing it, and every single time, Moe grabs the phone and swears the same blood oath that if he ever gets his hands on whoever's doing this, he'll kill them. It's such a simple little machine of a joke, and it ran for years. So here's where it gets weird. That exact machine turns up in The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron. The episode's called The Trouble with Clones, and the whole plot is Jimmy building himself a clone to get out of doing his chores, which, naturally, comes out evil and spends the episode wrecking the place. And one of the things this evil clone does, out of everything he could possibly do with his freedom, is make a prank call.
I'm looking for Ambassador Shake My Booty, first name Ivana.
Hold on. Guys, Ivana Shake My Booty!
That's the whole bit. Fake name, insult buried inside it. Exactly the shape Bart had been running since before this kid genius existed. That one you could hear coming. This next one you've got to actually catch because it's over in about a second. Sometimes a show doesn't take the whole joke, it just takes the DNA. And no show on television has more recognizable DNA than this one. Bart's hair, Homer's head, the yellow skin. You can draw 3 lines on a napkin and every person alive knows exactly who they're looking at. That kind of instant recognition is genuinely rare, and it makes the show incredibly easy to reference on the sly because you don't need to explain the reference. The shape does all the work for you. And Teen Titans Go is a show absolutely crammed with pop culture nods anyway, so a couple of Simpsons ones slide straight in without anyone blinking. In an episode called Starfire the Terrible, Robin flashes Bart's exact spiky hairstyle for a single beat, and then it's gone before you've even registered it. Then in their Space Jam episode, Robin gets fully redrawn as Homer. And here's the detail that gives the game away completely. It happens during a joke about Dan Castellaneta. That's the guy who's voiced Homer for over 30 years. So this was never some accidental resemblance where 2 artists landed in the same place. Somebody in that room knew exactly what they were doing. Everything so far has been a show quietly hoping nobody would clock it. This next one does the exact opposite. Back in season 6, The Simpsons did Itchy and Scratchy Land. The family drives out to a theme park built entirely around the most violent cartoon on television. An entire resort themed around a mouse and cat who do nothing but dismember each other. And for a while, it's a normal family holiday episode. Homer gets in trouble, the kids run around, there's a whole bit about Marge getting arrested. But then the park's animatronic Itchy and Scratchy robots start to malfunction. And instead of posing for photos, they turn on the guests and start hunting people down for real. The family ends up cornered, and the way they finally beat the robots is by realizing the machines are drawn to camera flashes. So they blind the whole swarm with a barrage of flash photography until they short out. It's a proper little horror movie premise hiding inside a theme park episode. So when Solar Opposites did their own dangerous theme park episode, Hulu Land, you'd expect them to keep quiet about where the idea came from, right? Wrong. The characters head off to a theme park that goes horribly, dangerously wrong in more or less the same shape, and rather than hide it, Corvo just says it out loud.
It's not gonna be like that Itchy and Scratchy Land episode of The Simpsons.
The show named its own source before a single person in the comments could beat them to it. And honestly, that's the smartest move you can make. It's pretty hard to call a show out for copying when it's already turned to the camera and told you exactly where it got the idea. It helps that Solar Opposites comes from some of the same people behind Rick and Morty, so being that knowing about its own references is very on brand. Now, I'll be straight with you. This next one's more of a maybe, and I genuinely want to know where you land on it. The episode it comes from is Welcome to the Chum Bucket, one of the big ones, where Mr. Krabs loses a bet and has to hand SpongeBob over to Plankton, who spends the whole thing trying to finally squeeze the Krabby Patty formula out of him. And somewhere in the middle of that, there's a brain-switching gag. Now compare that to Treehouse of Horror 2, where Mr. Burns decides he wants the perfect obedient worker. So he has Homer's brain pulled out and transplanted into a giant robot he's built. It's peak Halloween special material. Dark, stupid, and a little bit horrifying. The kind of body horror gag the show can only really get away with in the Treehouse episodes. Brain out of one body, into something else. Chaos follows. A few crossover wikis reckon that SpongeBob brain switch lines up with that Treehouse segment, and I can see it. But I can also make the case the other way, that a brain swap is such an old standard cartoon idea that 2 shows landing on it independently isn't exactly a smoking gun. Nobody owns the brain swap. So of everything on this list, this is the one I lean toward calling calling a coincidence, but I've been wrong plenty of times before, and you lot catch things I don't, so this one I'm genuinely handing to the comments. That last one might have been one shared gag at most. This next show didn't bother with one gag. It built an entire knockoff Simpsons and dropped a character into the middle of it. The Fairly Odd Parents has an episode called Channel Chasers, where Timmy gets his hands on a magic remote control that lets him leap inside any show on TV. The setup is that he's trying to escape into the television to get away from his life for a bit, and the whole thing turns into a chase through a load of different parody channels, fake sitcoms, fake action shows, the lot. And one of the shows he lands inside is a cartoon called The Feldmans, and the moment it appears, you know precisely what you're looking at. There's a chalkboard gag. Timmy himself drops straight into full Bart mode, skateboarding through the scene with the whole authority-hating attitude. There's a nuclear power plant sitting in the background. There's a supporting cast, who are basically Krusty, Ned, and Barney, with the labels peeled off. It's Springfield with the serial numbers filed down. And this is the one where homage really is the right word for it, because it's so blatant, it's obviously affectionate. Nobody accidentally recreates Springfield down to the chalkboard and the power plant and the exact character archetypes. You only build something that specific if you grew up loving the original and you want the audience to recognize every piece of it. Which brings me to the last one. And this is the one that actually got me, because it isn't a gag or a look or a single scene. It's a whole episode. And it comes from the last show on Earth you'd ever suspect. Original First. Season 6, an episode called Bart's Comet. It kicks off with Bart, of all people, accidentally discovering a comet while he's stuck doing early morning astronomy as a punishment with Principal Skinner. The comet gets named after him, and then the science catches up, and everyone realizes the thing is heading straight for Springfield. The whole town completely unravels. Professor Frink builds a rocket to blow the comet out of the sky before it can land. They fire it off, and it misses entirely. And on the way down, it takes out the only bridge out of town, so now nobody can even leave. So the town gives up and piles into the one shelter anyone bothered to build, which is Flanders. It's instantly overcrowded. There's no room, and they actually vote to throw Ned out of his own bomb shelter. Ned wanders off up the hill alone, singing to himself, waiting to die. And one by one, everyone feels so guilty that they climb out to join him, and the entire town ends up sitting together out in the open, ready to face the end as one. Then the comet finally arrives, and because Springfield's air is so thick with pollution, the thing burns up on the way down and lands as this tiny, harmless little rock, flattening the empty shelter they'd all just abandoned. Now here's Zig and Sharko in an episode literally called End of the World. A meteor is coming. There's a shelter. There's a rocket fired off to stop the meteor, and the rocket fails. And as the meteor drops out of the sky, the characters hold hands and brace for the end together. Then the meteor burns down to a tiny, harmless rock. Same beats, same order. A French cartoon about a shark ran the entire Bart's Comet checklist front to back. The shelter, the failed rocket, the hand-holding, the giant threat shriveling into a pebble. One or two matching moments, fine, you call it a coincidence. Big disasters make for similar stories. But a kid's show hitting every major plot point of a 30-year-old Simpsons episode in the same sequence? That comparison is pretty hard to ignore. The Simpsons did it first, and somebody in France was very clearly taking notes. And that's the list. If there's a copy I missed, and knowing you lot there is, put it in the comments. Subscribe if you want more of these, and I'll see you in the next one.